And welcome to Money Matters with Hung Lu. I am with Cash Property, and today it is Easter Monday, so this will be a shorter video than normal. So we are going to go and look at a calculation that came through. A request here about should I be selling my condo and buying something else with it? Okay, so we'll jump right into it. And this is to help, fellow investors sort of make educated decisions about investing in real estate. So I'm happy to be able to share this calculation with everybody today. Okay, so let me go into the share screen. All right, so here we go. All right. So you'll recognize this spreadsheet, this particular spreadsheet. This is from one of the February sessions that we did. So in the descriptions, I'll put the link to the other video where we talked about another investor from Bigger Pockets was asking, hey, I have a condo. Should I sell it and do something else with it? So this is a similar idea here about, should I sell this condo or should I keep it? And should I do something else with it? Okay, so let me set the stage here. So in this particular situation, the condo was purchased with a purchase price of 373 in 2018. So a couple of years ago. And we're sort of saying that there's going to be a 3% appreciation year over year. This 3% will change depending on what location it is and what the economic situation is like um, at the time of running the calculations. So we're picking a flat number here and applying it year over year. So there is a bit of an assumption there. So just keep that in mind. And that also reminds me, I need to put a disclaimer in here, okay? That these calculations, you do need to run these calculations on your own, double check them with somebody else. Don't just take my end results and be like, oh, well, Hung said this, and so it's good to go. Okay, so please just double check it. So we're running the numbers and we're saying, okay, in 5 years' time, the property is going to be worth about 432,000 just based on the 3% appreciation. And so this is where I'd like to put in the part. So we're looking at a condo here. As an investor buying real estate, I am not a big fan of buying condos because there's maintenance fees. That eats that eats into a huge part of your cash flow. And cash flow is one of the big parts of making a return on real estate investing. And so if you're paying, even if it's $200 a month in maintenance fees, that adds up over the course of the time frame. Okay, so I'm not a big fan of condos. The other reason that I'm not a big fan of condos is there can be special assessments. Okay, so what I'll do is I did a couple of videos on special assessments already. So rather than me going through it here, I'll just include a link somewhere in the video here. Okay, all right. So with this 3% appreciation, that's only one part of the calculation. Okay, so the other part that you want to look at is cash flow and mortgage paydown. Okay, so usually with condos, if you can get $100 a month to $200 a month in a condo unit, that's pretty good. So in this case, we're actually saying we're not getting any money. Okay, so we're saying zero cash flow. So all the money that you're getting in from this condo unit is paying for the mortgage, whether it's variable or fixed, paying for your maintenance fees, paying for your property manager, even if you're self-managing. So we're just going to assume that it's a zero cost across the board for cash flow. The appreciation here is just whatever the gain is in 5 years minus your initial purchase price. Okay, so that is, in this case here, if you look at the formula, it's just your 445,000 minus your 373,000. Okay, so that's your appreciation at 3%. So if you adjust this 3% up, then you're going to see a higher appreciation number here. So if you're in, let's say, Toronto, Vancouver, this 3% is on the low end. But if you're in Alberta, okay, this 3% might actually be very generous. Okay, so you want to take that with a grain of salt. The mortgage paydown number came from a calculation, and this calculator is already built in to this spreadsheet. So we calculated that the mortgage paydown is $40,000. Okay, so this mortgage pay down came from here, and we just pulled it from this number here. So J11, yeah. So this is the J11. So what we're doing is we're just saying, okay, over the course of 5 years, if we're going to hold the mortgage for a 5-year term, the mortgage interest rate is 3.5 over 25 years. We're assuming here that they had to put down 20% down payment. So they took out a loan to value from the bank at 80%. So their mortgage started at 293 in the first year, and then they worked their way down. So the interest that the principal pay down would be 40,000. Okay. Now, an interesting side note here. Within your 5 years, look at the amount of interest you would have paid on this, 48,000. Okay. So what that means is you've actually paid more interest on this condo than you would have in principal pay down. Okay. If the light bulb is not going off here for you, please watch this portion again, because what this is saying is that you're paying, like, for every month that you're paying $1,500 towards your mortgage, half of that, if not more, is going to the interest. Okay. Whereas less than half of that is going to your principal pay down. Okay. Like, you're paying so much more for your investment here because you're leveraging the bank, and that's totally fine. But if this is your primary residence, you want to be aware that after 5 years, you've barely made a dent in your mortgage here. Okay, because half of your payments have gone to your interest payments. So, you know, during the course of 5 years, a lot can happen in our lives, and a lot of people will think about selling their property after 5 years. And this is one of the reasons why I say, you know what, really think hard about whether or not you want to sell. Run the numbers to make sure that it's worth selling. Because after 5 years, look at this, like, your outstanding balance after 5 years is close to 260,000, whereas you started with 300,000. Like, you've literally, like you've only chipped away at this principal amount very slowly. Okay, so just like a side comment on that. Okay, so let's go back to and get focused back on this here. So the mortgage paydown is $40,000. So the total gain in the 5-year period, okay, is $113,000. This is one number to look at over the course of 5 years. So if you're running this analysis after, let's say, 7 years or 3 years, that number needs to be divided by the number of years that you've held it. Okay, so every single year, this condo, you would have actually made about $22,000. Okay, so that's not bad. Okay, considering that, you made the purchase and your down payment on this, was 20% of this. Okay, so about 70,000 or $80,000. Okay, so yeah, so here's the down payment number here. So I basically assumed that you had to put 20% down because it's an investment condo. Now, if you moved in here and live there as your primary, okay, well then maybe you got this under when we had the 5% down payment, first time home buyers, okay? If not, well then maybe you used some of your RSPs. Okay, so this, I'm assuming that you had to put 20% down. So that's the other number here that, like, this calculation has a lot of assumptions in there. Okay, so the total ROI that you would have seen over the 5-year period. So keep in mind that it's based on 5 years, okay, is based on your total gain. So this 113,000 divided by the amount of money you actually invested. So if you're saying, well, but Huong, the condo was worth 373,000. Well, yeah, it was worth you bought it at 373, but you only put in 74,000. So when you're calculating your ROI, you only want to consider the amount of money that you put in, okay, not how much money you borrowed from the bank. Okay, so you would go, okay, so now your total ROI is 151%. So that's fantastic, but it was over 5 years. So you have to divide that by 5. Okay, so it's really just your ROI divided by 5. So that's what your IRR is. Okay, so your internal rate of return. Okay, so when you look at this number, 30%, that's really good for an investment. Okay, so now you might be thinking, oh my God, but Huong, you at the beginning of this video, you said don't buy a condo as an investment property, and you're absolutely right. So this here, takes into consideration your mortgage pay down. Okay. Usually when we run our numbers to compare opportunities, a lot of times we don't look at mortgage pay down. It's one of those like hidden bonuses that come in. The other thing is a lot of times we don't even look at the appreciation number. That's not really a guaranteed number. Like it's not something we can count on. It's a bonus. So a lot of times we don't even look at those things. So a lot of times the only thing we look at is cash flow, and we say, okay, well, does this property positive cash flow? And if it doesn't, well, then what can we do to make it positive cash flow? What do we need to adjust in terms of the purchase price? Okay, that's what we usually look at. So in this case, because we're looking at everything, okay, it looks really good. So if you are comparing this to a multifamily or to another, like a single family, you're going to want to consider the appreciation in it, the mortgage pay down in it as well, okay, to compare it apples to apples. Okay, so in this case, this person could potentially be making about 30% on their initial investment, okay? So would I necessarily consider selling this property off, okay, cashing out? Because at this point, you would have the 40,000 to go and leverage somewhere else, along with the $74,000, okay? Because that's equity that you have in the opportunity already. So in total, you would have 40,000 plus 74,000. So you'd have about $115,000 that you could potentially go and do something else with. Like this is the equity that you would have. The bank would actually write you out a check for this amount if you were to go and sell this property at, around 445, 450,000. Okay. Now, the thing to keep in mind that we're not going to include in here is that if you were renting this out, you would have capital gains tax. Okay. So that's a part of the calculation that you have to take in mind. You may have a penalty for closing this mortgage out. Okay. So you need to consider that idea. The other thing that you need to consider is, are you going to be able to port this mortgage somewhere else? Can you bridge it somewhere else? Are you able to qualify for another mortgage at another location when you get going? Okay, so that's a couple of considerations before you go and think about offloading this property. So here's what I would say with this $115,000, okay? This 115, a portion of it, so the 74, because that was the money that you put into the deal, you've already paid taxes on it, okay? But here's the thing to keep in mind. This $40,000 of equity that you would pull out, it's tax-free, meaning that you would have had, so if you're in the 35% tax bracket, you would have had to make, $55,000, $60,000 in order to pay taxes on it to the government and then to recognize $40,000. So this 40,000 is actually worth $55,000, let's say. Okay, so this amount of mortgage pay down is completely tax-free. Okay, so that's a huge benefit there. Okay, so now you're going to take this 115. Okay, and if you can do something with it that is more than 30% return, or more than the appreciation plus the cash flow, then it may make sense to go and do something with it, like cash out, sell this property, and then go do something else with it. If you have no other opportunities, like no deal flow coming in, no other investment opportunities, then maybe it doesn't make sense for you to offload this property. Okay. The other thing to consider is that if you are a landlord and you're self-managing, well, how much headache is this property giving you? If it's not giving you any headaches and you're not, if you don't have another opportunity to put this in that is going to generate more than 30% return for you, why would you sell it? Just keep it. Okay. Just keep paying down the mortgage. Because here's the thing. At some point, okay, so I'm going to show you this graph here. At some point, at this point here, which is just after the 5 and 6 year mark, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you so that you could see this diagram here. Okay, so you see, if I move this blue line here, okay, so just after the 5 year mark, you're going to be your monthly payments that you're paying down to into your mortgage payments, more of that is going to go towards your principal payment. So the longer you hold on to this property, more of your payments, especially after close to the 5.5 year mark, more of your monthly payments are going to go towards tackling the principal. Okay. So what that means is that if everything stays the same, when you run this calculation, let's say in 7 or 8 years, you're going to see this principal pay down jump significantly more. Okay. And that's one of the great things about holding onto a property. If everything else, holds still, then it might make sense for you to hold on to this property because you're going to be tackling more of the principal pay down. Okay. So now another consideration though, I'm assuming that you're going to sell it for about 445, $450,000. If somebody comes and offers you $600,000, okay, well, that's a different situation. Okay, you might want to really think about selling it at that point, because if you sell it, let's just say for 160,000, that's $150,000 more gain. Like, look at this. We're going into 2032, you haven't even made that 150,000 in appreciation yet. Okay. So that might make it an incentive. Like if the economy is booming and you can offload this property at a significantly higher appreciation amount than what you have accounted for, it actually might make sense for you to sell it. Okay, so please feel free to contact me and let me know what you think about all of these numbers. Okay. Okay, so we're going to stop there because it's the long weekend. I want to get back to hanging out with my family, doing the Easter egg hunt. So I do want to do a quick shout out to my great aunt Lorna. Um, Love you so much. I'm so glad to be able to, have all this family time with you and to be able to, I'm just so glad that you're recovering from your stroke. And I just want to send you so much love and just let you know that, like every additional day that we have with you is a blessing. And so just want to say, say, love you. Okay. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for watching. Have a happy Easter Monday.